Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Golf and Politics. Rob, good to see you, brother.
Good to see you too.
Had a little bit of difficulty over the last few weeks with our schedules and coming together, so it's good to be back, and it's good that it's just the two of us today. Maybe we'll get in some arguments. Maybe we'll have some agreements. I'm sure we'll have some disagreements, for sure. So, how you been, man? How you been?
I've been great. I mean, the first couple months of a new Congress and new administration are always busy for us. So that's nothing new. It's been a change of pace from last January and February, where I've mostly spent both months in Florida playing golf. So this month I spent more time in DC, which is great. I get paid to do my hobby, so I like politics and I get paid to do it. And this is the Super Bowl for it. So your off years are my on years, but I know you've got a gubernatorial race this year.
Yeah. And then every single statewide office is up for election in Oklahoma in 2026. And we have some key state Senate vacancies that are happening. And there's a lot of work that goes into getting the message out about this legislative session. And so I kind of feel similar to a college football coach in the offseason right now, where we're out recruiting candidates. We're trying to find the best candidates for each of these races. I'd like to think that I'm just a brilliant political consultant. And the truth is, even the most brilliant political consultants can only get people across the finish line that are good candidates. And so I like to work with winners. And I heard somebody say the other day that they're looking for candidates that are fat, friendly, agreeable to the plan, and teachable. So, these are the kind of candidates that we're looking for. People that are friendly and want to go out and achieve some great things and agree with the plan and get out there and just work their ever-loving tails off. And so, yeah, we're getting after it each and every day, and a little busier than I thought I'd be. But the weather sucks so bad in Oklahoma right now that I don't feel too bad about missing any good golf weather.
When you said fat, I thought you might be bringing Chris Christie back into the fold.
Not during the Trump years. He's not getting back in the fold.
My only experience with your kind of work, and I've run campaigns, but typically in competitive, moderate districts. But for 2 years in Southwest Ohio, I worked on Bush Cheney and John Boehner, and I worked for the party. And Butler County, Ohio, and those Southwest counties besides downtown Cincinnati, we used to call it Republican on Republican hate crime. And those were some of the most brutal campaigns I ever dealt with because, the Democrats were irrelevant. You never worried about a general election. It was all about a nasty primary. And you had countless Republican officials at all levels who felt it was their turn. And they had been locking up the right endorsements and the right donors, and they hated each other. And those campaigns were so nasty. So I don't know Oklahoma politics, but I can imagine that it's probably like Southwest Ohio. Where,
it is.
Yeah.
It's very nice. Like whoever wins the Republican primary in all of these races is the elected official. None of the general elections will be competitive in Oklahoma. This is a state that Trump won all 77 counties. We have some little pockets of blue and purple, but this is a deeply red state. And yeah, like my candidate for governor is the sitting attorney general right now, and he and the current governor do not get along. And there's public fights, and I was in a Twitter spat with his press secretary yesterday. So, it's fun. We're jabbing back and forth. And while we agree on a lot of issues, there's some key sharp disagreements, and we're not going to sit back and take any punches. We're gonna punch back, and so it's interesting. Some of the voters are a little worn out by it because we are still a long ways away from the election, but you got to do what you got to do and set up your candidates to be in a position to win. And it's a whole new world right now in Republican primaries, and so we're excited for the next few months, but it's going to be, sometimes it's more difficult than running against a Democrat because you have clearly articulated battle lines. there's some weird dynamics that happen in Republican primaries, and some of it ends up being about personalities and leadership styles and weird coalitions. So we'll see how it plays out. You just go out there and campaign hard, and at the end of the day, things that still matter for candidates is you got to be a likable person, and you got to go connect with lots and lots of voters, and you got to raise a lot of money in order to get your message out.
One thing I want to change with the system, and beyond just campaign finance reform and how we draw districts, the one thing that really from personal experience that I found, and this was true in both parties, when I was the chief of staff and your boss wins, there's no time to just do the job. It's an endless 24/7, 365 campaign. And so literally on election night, you win your race and you're already planning your victory fundraiser, which we all joked about calling the Kiss the Ring fundraiser, where all the people who gave to your opponent come and kiss the ring because you're in charge. And so there's this endless, endless campaign. And I know that my reform would probably be bad for your business because endless campaigns are great in your line of work. But what I found on the DC side is the amount of time members of Congress and the House and Senate spend dialing for dollars, raising money every single day, attending fundraisers, going home, and everything's a campaign event. You never really get that time to settle in and do the damn job that you were elected for in the first place. And so you rely heavily on staff to work on the details. And the members, because they fly back and forth to their districts, they don't really know each other. And in my line of work, lobbying, which is very similar to being a senior staffer or a member of Congress, because you're working out deals, it's all based upon trust and building a relationship across the aisle or in your own party to where you trust me to co-sponsor my bill because I'm not going to screw you. I'm not going to slide something into it, a poison pill that'll hurt you back in your state. And when you're just campaigning around the clock, it's exhausting. But it is the way we do business right now. You're stupid if you don't. And, it is. That's what it is.
I think that actually be a great topic for another show for people to understand some of the campaign finance things, how it works, how much campaigns really cost. I think a lot of people would be blown away if they realized how much money is spent on like a U.S. Senate seat, a competitive U.S. Senate seat, and how much you need to have just to be a relevant candidate. I mean, frankly, like even in a state like Oklahoma, which is not a large state, I mean, if you don't have millions of dollars in the bank, like don't even think about running for governor. If you don't have millions of dollars with the ability to write a check for millions of dollars, don't even think about running because you will not get noticed and you won't be a relevant candidate. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just making that as an observation.
Yeah.
For my business, it's actually, it's good. But is it good for democracy? I'm not making an opinion one way or the other. I'm just saying that's the fact of the matter. In even states like West Virginia, where a governor's race, the winning campaign spent between the super PACs and the campaign spent 8 figures. And this is one of the smallest states in the country. So it's expensive. But
the biggest change I've seen in the area where I think Democrats had an early advantage and Republicans have since caught up is on small dollar fundraising. Barack Obama really was the first internet president, so to speak. I know the internet was founded by Al Gore and developed under the Clinton administration. But Obama really taught Democrats how to raise money in small forums. And Republicans, it was traditionally the high dollar fat cat donors attending expensive dinners. And now, I mean, Donald Trump, even down to members like former member Gates and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Boebert. I don't want to just use the weirdo members, but those are the ones that even in our party are able to just say something stupid and raise millions of dollars. And that ability, in my view, has done as much as anything to neuter congressional leadership because they no longer care if you kick them off the Financial Services Committee or Appropriations Committee because they can go out and raise their own money. They don't need the Speaker of the House or the Democratic leader to come raise money for them. they've got their own podcast, they've got their own social media presence, and they can raise millions of dollars at a snap of a finger. So the game has changed. And really what I've seen is the number of serious legislators, and there are very serious legislators in both parties, most of whom most people have not heard of because they're not on TV every night. But the serious legislators have shrunk, and we're seeing more and more of the 535 in the House and Senate. They're like mini platforms. They're their own platforms. And they're more interested in communicating directly with voters on grievances from the right or the left than they are about the serious bones and details of legislating, which is pretty fucking hard. That's why
Yeah.
I make money. I know how
Right.
to do it. So those are things that might be good for another show.
Yeah, for sure. And I think with all of this, there's some good things that come from all that and some bad things that come. And it's never a perfect system, and we're definitely not in a perfect world. But we do have some interesting news. This show is called Golf and Politics. And when there's an intersection of golf and politics, we get excited because we can have a show built around it. There was some big news that came out of the White House last week. Jordan, why don't you roll that first clip for us?
Fairly substantial news across our desk from the headquarters of the PGA Tour. Commissioner Jay Monahan and player director Adam Scott met with President Trump on Tuesday. Here now the statement. This is also signed by Tiger Woods, player director. We know golf fans are eagerly anticipating a resolution to negotiations with a public investment fund, and want to thank President Trump for his interest and long-time support of the game of golf. We asked the president to get involved for the good of the game, the good of the country, and for all the countries involved. We are grateful that his leadership has brought us closer to a final deal, paving the way for reunification of men's professional golf. What do you think, Randall?
All right. So, I mean, this is huge news. We have the commissioner of the PGA Tour. We have Adam Scott. Tiger Woods was supposed to be in the meeting, but his mother passed away and he was unable to be there. And in fact, because he's still grieving the loss of his mother, he's not going to be playing at Torrey Pines this weekend, which I was looking forward to seeing him tee it up at the Genesis. But clearly, post-election, there is a desire amongst the powers to be in the PGA Tour to have Trump be some kind of a broker here on helping to bring LIV and the PGA Tour together. Did you foresee this kind of coming together when Trump got elected? And do you think they would have been reaching out to Joe Biden if he would, or to Kamala Harris if she would have won the election?
No, I don't think they would have reached out to Kamala Harris because she's not a golfer. And I did see this coming in one form or another. I mean, Trump's been hinting at it for a year or two now. So I'm not surprised at all. And I've done a little bit of work, I know, as in our episode with Jeff Shackelford. When the PGA Tour ever needed anything in Washington, Jack Nicklaus would call John Baker. Tim Finchem would call George W. Bush. And they're golfers. The Bush family had a long history. The Walker Cup is named after George Walker Bush, the elder. So I'm not surprised. I also think that this is something Trump cares about. I think he's in his new presidency honeymoon. I mean, depending on polling, he's between 47 and 53%, which for Trump is really high. So he's not toxic as he was in years past when there was more of a political divide between LIV and the PGA. I would also point out that at this point in Joe Biden's presidency, he had a 63% job approval rating, and Democrats were arrogantly saying this is going to be an FDR type presidency. So everybody slow your roll on the first month or two.
Hey, we got plenty of time to get into that in the next segment. But no, I mean, I think the point you're making is right. Like, regardless of your politics, the fact that Trump is a golfer and loves the game of golf, that matters. Well, why don't you roll the clip, Jordan, of Sunday morning, which I think we can all agree Donald Trump had every man's dream on Sunday. Here he is in Florida, teeing it up with Tiger and Charlie Woods. And I'm sure that the reason that they were getting together, Trump hinted to it in an interview that they did talk a little bit about this. He also said, go ahead, Jordan, you can take that off now. But He said that Tiger's very sad about his mother, and I don't know how much that impacted their conversations during the day on the golf course. Apparently, Tiger shot 65. Unbelievable that, I mean, playing golf with Tiger Woods in the morning, going to the Super Bowl at night. I mean, that's something only Rob Ellsworth would be able to pull off at some point. So
I tried
we
my
all
best.
we all living, us Republicans, we were kind of living vicariously through Trump on Sunday.
I mean, if I had Air Force One and Marine One at my disposal, there's a lot we could be making. We would be playing golf with Tiger Woods at Augusta.
That's right. Yeah.
Look, Tiger. There are three right now that I think really move the needle in golf. One's obviously the president, by virtue of having the platform of the presidency, and being a player in the game. And the other two, you're gonna laugh. Tiger Woods doesn't surprise you, but Charlie Woods. And for me personally, I love the game of golf. I've kind of been turned off by the pro game, really since Tiger kind of phased out. I tend to mostly watch the majors and some of the bigger tour events. I've never actually really watched a full live event. But I do watch the PNC Father-Son Challenge because I love getting to watch Tiger and Charlie. And I would say the same thing about professional basketball. Like in the 90s, I watched every Bulls game. I was a Michael Jordan diehard. I knew every player on the Bulls. I watched the games. That's the stuff I asked for Christmas, for gifts like Bulls tickets when they'd come to Cleveland or whatever. But Pittsburgh didn't have a team. And so when Jordan retired, I kind of fizzled out of basketball. And I've kind of done that with pro golf. Like I'm a little turned off by, they play mostly shitty tracks that aren't interesting. I don't really care to watch them shoot minus 32 on the TPC, whatever. I don't know a lot of the players because it's been diluted and watered down since Live and the Tour split. So I've kind of lost interest in it, but I do still watch Tiger and I do still watch Charlie. And so I think having Tiger involved is very important to getting a deal. If I were Trump, I'd just do what he's doing on every other problem. Have Elon Musk buy the PGA Tour, have him and Jeff Bezos. I mean, with Twitter, we saw that he's willing to take multi-billion-dollar losses on a company to have a platform and to have influence. So why not just buy golf? So that's one thing that I would do if I were Trump. But overall, look, I don't think the PGA Tour has lost its moral high ground that it had at the beginning of this. When Jay Monahan evoked 9/11 and evoked Saudi terrorism, and then months later announces without even telling his star players, we're going to try to reach a deal to merge with Liv. That argument's out the window. The Brando Chambly argument to me becomes irrelevant because
Speaking of Brando, why don't we roll the clip of Brando Chambly on the Golf Channel talking about playing golf with President Trump.
Well, look, I felt like it was inevitable after the election. I had the pleasure of playing with President Trump last year, and almost after every single hole when we would putt out, he would want to come over and talk to me about live golf, about Saudi's involvement in the game of golf, and he was so magnanimous about our differences. At one point, he said, "Look, I know you and I differ on this opinion, but hear me out." He said, Yasser, meaning the gentleman who runs Live and heads the PIF fund. He said, Yasser loves golf more than you do and more than I do. Now, that's hard to believe because President Trump plays a lot of golf, and I'm crazy about it. But he was serious. He was like, he loves golf that much. They have $32 trillion worth of oil underneath that sand, and they really have to diversify their economy. He said they are all in on this, and they're not going anywhere. As the round progressed, he would want to talk almost every hole about Live and about the Saudi involvement, how excited he was for it. Geopolitical side, issues aside, of course, I understand why we acquiesce and need Saudi Arabia as a partner in the Middle East. My issues were about the human rights concerns and about how golf was at some point, I felt like going to have to apologize for some issue. And he was like, just look farther into the future. It's going to be good for Saudi Arabia. It's going to be good for the PGA Tour. It's going to be good for LIV. And at the end of the day, did I agree with him? No. But, you know, I got to say, he made strong points all day long. He was, I wouldn't say adamant about it, but he was as opinionated on one side of it as I was. I was happy to listen to him. I was grateful for the conversation all day long. And at the end of it, I will say that he did change my mind. I mean, he made me think about Yasser as a partner in the game of golf and not looking just for an economic.
So, I mean, that's very interesting. And I know Brandel took a lot of heat on Twitter. He's somebody that I have not been a huge fan of through all of this, because I feel that all this outrage directed at LIV. It's like there's not an outrage directed every time you go to the pump and get gas. There's not an outrage directed at Microsoft and so many other companies that have major Saudi investments. They're involved. The PIF is invested in lots of American companies and corporations. So I've always been, skeptical of the, they're so terrible, they can't be involved in golf. Well, they're involved in so many other businesses that we use every single day. So to me, that argument never really held a lot of water. But yeah, you're right. I mean, once Jay Monahan went down the road of saying we're in talks with the Saudis about a LIV PGA merger, I think a lot of that moral high ground in the beginning went out the window.
I agree. Look, professional golf is not your church or local PTA. It's a business.
Right.
And like we were talking about politicians earlier, Brando Chambly is in a business too. And like him or hate him, he's really good at garnering heat, like a professional wrestler. We're going to use another analogy. And he has some interesting hot takes. I agree with some of them. I don't agree with all of them, obviously. But, look how he's inserted himself in the middle of the situation. He gets good ratings. People talk about him. They tweet about him. He's got himself a meeting with the president of the United States as just a Golf Channel or NBC golf announcer. And let's face it, Brando Chambly's claim to fame on the PGA Tour was winning like the Greater Greensboro Classic.
Right.
I mean, this was not a Tier 1A tour pro. So kudos to Brandel for inserting himself right in the middle in the nexus of what's going to happen with golf. Look, I think both tours have been watered down. They need to merge. I want to see the best players play against each other again. The current system, I think, is broken because no one's really moving the needle. So figuring out a way to make a stale product, and it is a stale product.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, I watched the 1986 Masters on YouTube, and I love golf, so it was interesting to watch some of the old players play. But like, the game and the coverage of it has to evolve. People aren't really sitting down every Saturday and Sunday and watching it on flat screen TVs anymore. They're watching it on their iPhones. They're watching it on iPads. And it's got to be more interactive.
That's right.
I think that Justin Thomas has been involved in trying to encourage the players to participate more with the media during rounds. Roy McIlroy has suggested what I said earlier about playing more interesting courses. There are very few Pebble Beaches and Muirfield Villages that they get to play every year on either tour. And one of the things that would drive me back into it is, not that they would play Pine Valley, but playing a Pine Valley, playing a Shinnecock, playing.
Well, I mean, like doing that. Remember back in the day, they used to do like these shell oil golf challenges at different golf courses, and it would be like a head-to-head match between Trevino and Nicholas or something. I mean, taking those guys to Pine Valley and making them carry their own bag or something, like that would be fun. Like make them play in 4 hours and 15 minutes like the members do at Pine Valley. And they don't have a caddy, and they just get out and get after it at one of the greatest golf courses on the planet. I mean, those kind of things would get eyeballs. I think you're right. They're still product, and let's be honest. LIV has its deficiencies, whether you like LIV or not. Like you can admit that it has its deficiencies. The PGA Tour has its deficiencies, and both tours aren't as good by themselves without intermingling some of the best players in the world. Like, you can't have a top golf tournament and say it's the best players in the world, and Bryson DeChambeau and Brooks Koepka and Dustin Johnson and some of these amazing golfers aren't even able to play in it. It just doesn't make sense. I also think, from a fan perspective, there are some PGA events that have more cachet than others, right? I mean, the Waste Management is a rousing success every single year. You're talking 60,000 fans a day, and what they have on number 16 is incredibly special. I mean, a 24,000 seat arena in the middle of a golf course for what is really not a very special par 3, but it's become this amazing party for the city of Phoenix, and people travel, like I did, all over the world to come see it. And the ratings show. People watch it on TV as well because they have some holes that make sense for that. But look, some of these tournaments where the guys are playing 5.5-hour rounds of golf, that's just not going to cut it. People don't want to watch a 5.5-hour round of golf.
They need a shot clock and they need penalties.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just asinine watching people do aim point putting, out there taking forever to hit a golf ball. It's just absurd. I mean, when it's your job to play golf and you're hitting 500 balls a day, they know exactly how far their 8-iron goes. If they hit a high cut, if they hit a knockdown, they don't need to spend 5 minutes standing over a shot, checking the wind. They know what they're doing. So that's just a ludicrous argument to me. Some of the other ludicrous arguments, I mean, I really don't care about this being good for the future of Saudi Arabia. I'd rather they let women drive and have sex lives and let, their people have rights and stop engaging in killing journalists. But, that's not the goal of what this business model is. I wish that there was a component of other countries valuing human rights, but that's not going to happen in a golf deal. So, really, they've got to get together. I mean, the other argument that I think sort of loses favor with me is a lot of younger people think, well, having 2 tours gives more opportunities for younger players to come out and play. Well, screw that from a fan perspective. Let the cream rise to the top. I think having 2 diluted tours cheapens the ability for some of these young studs to come out and beat all the very best in the world. So if we shrink the number of players from 250 on both tours to 100 or 75, great. Give me the best 75. I don't want to watch number 231. Like, if a young Scotty Scheffler comes on the scene through LIV or through the PGA Tour right now, there is a little bit of a historical asterisk about, well, you're only competing against half the best golfers in the world. So if you combine the 2 tours and put them up against everybody, let's see the cream really rise to the top. Because right now you got a lot of young talent on the PGA Tour who no one's ever heard of, and they aren't watching them. And then on LIV, you have more of the big name guys that are our age, that were superstars 10 years ago, that maybe aren't the best in the world anymore, but they're the big names. And they're not moving the needle either on viewership. So there is no solution other than merging the 2 and updating the product and having it be a more interactive, fun, entertaining product. And pace of play is huge to that. Huge.
But we have to get the personalities to show. Some of these guys have great personalities, but they're viewed as almost robotic out on the golf course. Like Jordan Spieth has got a great personality. It was wonderful to see him playing well again last week. And I mean, he moves the needle, not at the level that Tiger or even Charlie moves the needle, but he's a needle mover. And he's out there scrambling around, getting up and down, like you said, out of a bucket, whatever he had to do. It was good to see him finish second. Now, as we shrink fields, though, too, I mean, you got to remember, there was a Monday qualifier in Phoenix named Will Chandler. He beat Scotty Scheffler and finished in the top 10. And under the new rules, next year there won't be a Monday qualifier at the Waste Management Phoenix Open. So, I mean, it is interesting how this is all going to play out with shrinking fields. And I don't claim to have the answers, but I think we can all agree that the product is stale and they need to find ways to reach audiences and make it more interesting and interactive.
part of the problem is how we develop the best golfers in the world. It's still an access issue. Unless you get sponsors when you're a teenager, a lot of these kids are growing up in wealthy country clubs. They have the best training and coaching psychologically and physically and technically from the time they're 7 years old. So by the time they get to the tour, they're little drones.
Yeah.
Like to become a great golfer that hits that many balls a day and plays 6 times a week and 30 tournaments a year, whatever the number is, you have to completely push emotion out of it in most cases. So the days of having the Lee Trevinos or the Chichi Rodriguez's, Chichi Rodriguez grew up in a very, very poor family and community and fought his way onto the tour. He and Lee, for an example, both had very different swings. There were a lot of self-taught elements to what they were doing. Even like a Bubba Watson would be a more recent example of somebody that's just a little different. And
Fred Couples, he doesn't wear a golf glove. He couldn't afford them growing up. His dad said, I'm not going to replace that all the time. So he just learned to play without a glove.
So a lot of these guys personally are not made for TV stories. They're not made for TV personalities. They're great golfers. They're probably good guys. But they're not fun to watch. Like there's no, there was a lot of excitement 5 to 10 years ago when the spring break crew was hitting Baker's Bay, and it was Ricky Fowler and Smiley Kaufman, Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth. And it was the first time a lot of us got a window into these guys' personal lives. And it garnered some interest and some excitement. Well, they're all married now. They've got kids. They're boring. No offense to people that are married with kids, but they're not doing the spring break Instagram party scene anymore, playing shirtless in their swim trunks at Baker's Bay. So, part of it's just a reality of how you get to the tour, then the demanding life on the tours. And then, eventually they get their late 20s, early 30s, they get married and they have kids and, they're not quite as interesting, so to speak.
All right, well, Rob, this is a great discussion. I mean, I don't know that we solved anything today. It's interesting that the leader of the United States, the president of the United States, is right in the middle of professional golf. I think we all hope that professional golf can get better. We hope that the game of golf can get better overall. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out and where professional golf is in 5 years. I don't think anybody knows exactly where it's going to be next year, let alone 5 years from now. But you do have a little insight. I mean, LIV is coming to your home club. Is there anything you want to kind of mention about that before we end this episode? I mean, what was that process like, and are you looking forward to that event at RTJ this summer?
LIV Washington, D.C. is coming to RTJ in June. It's a week before the U.S. Open. We're excited about it. They'll have their full field there. We're now in the process of educating members on how the week will look and how everything will be leading up to that. But it's really easy. Actually, it looks to be more turnkey than the Solheim Cup was, because the Solheim Cup, they had a presence on our property for about 2 years. And they had 2 or 3 full-time people there every day, working on sponsorships and selling suites and, every detail of the event. And with LIV, there's no real lead up to it. The course is just closed for 7 days. I think we close the Saturday night before the week of it, and then we reopen the following Monday morning after the event. So it's closed for a week. And no real major work going into it. I mean, it's less of a sponsorship deal because,
Sure.
the LIV doesn't necessarily rely on that the way the PGA Tour does. But we're already working on tickets. All of our members are allocated a certain amount in valet parking and special access in the clubhouse and, special member facilities out on the course. So I'm really anxious to check it out. It'll be fun to see some of the players that I frankly have not watched in the last couple of years, and to just see how they do things and how it works. And RTJ will be a phenomenal venue. This will be our 7th major pro event for President's Cups, Tigers, Quicken Loans, the Solheim Cup, and now LIV. So it's proven to be a great test in the past,
Yeah.
a lot of fun. So I'm anxious to see how they want the course set up and how everything looks and what the vibe is. So it should be fun.
I'm looking forward to as well. One thing that, having been to a LIV event, they came here to Tulsa, to Broken Arrow, to Cedar Ridge Country Club a couple years ago. And you're right, their footprint is a lot smaller than a PGA Tour event. Like, their merch tent is smaller. They don't set up massive grandstands everywhere. It was well attended. I think there was 15, 20,000 fans a day that showed up. There was some good concerts out on the property as well. But the thing that I liked as a spectator, the music, which I would admit, when you're watching LIV on television, the music can be a bit annoying because it's just kind of a faint pop music in the background, you know? But when you're at the event, it's actually fairly loud. And so you're just like my dad and I are out there, we're just walking and we're talking like this, not needing to be quiet because the players can't hear us because of the music. So it kind of makes for fan interaction. Like, you can just sit there, shoot the breeze with the people around you. You don't have to worry about being quiet in places. And I also like the shotgun start does make it nice. I mean, 4.5 hours, it's done. And so if you go one place, you're going to be able to see everybody fairly quickly. It's like sometimes I know with major events, there's the morning wave and the afternoon wave, and nobody's going to go out for 9 hours to watch golf. I mean, that just be too much. So you pick your spots of where you want to go. It is kind of nice to just go at one given time, see everybody, and then leave. But I'll be interested to see what you think about it after experiencing it.
Well, one of the things I've been looking into it a lot more, obviously, since we're about to host it. But one of the things I really like that LIV does is having a central fan zone, particularly for seniors and kids. And I can remember going to the President's Cup at Muirfield Village and taking my niece Ella, who at the time was 5. And my friend Rob Stickway brought his son Reese, who's Ella's age, which was 5. And they were just exhausted. I mean, like, that's a lot of walking for little kids or for seniors to really see the action. You couldn't get really close to the action. And they were bored and tired. And like, I ended up carrying a 5-year-old on my shoulders, walking 5 miles on the course. And then we were the furthest point away from our cars possible. And the skies broke loose at the memorial.
I was there that day, and they checked. There's a picture being shot at the President's Cup, and that it rained like nobody's business. We were just completely drenched from head to toe. It was crazy.
And at least at a LIV event, you don't find yourself carrying a 5-year-old 5 miles. Like, there are places to sit. There are games to play that are golf related. There are TVs and fans, like not people fans, but like actual fans, keep you cool. And I think that's great because not everybody wants to go walk the entire golf course. They want to be there. They want to feel the vibe. When I go to the Masters, I walk the full length of the course once, maybe twice, just because I just love it. And then I find a cool place. I park my chair somewhere early. And when you go to the Masters, you put your chair next up, to the rope. Nobody touches it. Yeah. You leave for the whole day. You can put your chair down.
Yeah.
You can go up to the merchandise tent, buy $1,000 worth of shit, stuff it in the chair bag, put it under the chair, go walk the course for hours and come back, and your chair is right where it was. Nobody gets mad at you for walking to it. Your stuff's underneath it. Nobody steals it or takes it. Now, granted, the Masters does it every single year, and they know what they're doing. But the fan experience is just better than any other pro sporting event. So I like.
Think about this when you're talking about experience. If I'm going to an NBA game and I want to sit courtside to really see the action, what are you paying? $5,000 at a minimum right now in the NBA to get per ticket to sit there. I mean, so you have to be wealthy in order to sit on the court. I was at the Waste Management, and I had my tickets got me access into luxury suites and so on and so forth. And really the whole day I was there Wednesday, I never left the suite. I mean, it was just meeting with clients, potential clients, that kind of stuff. So I got there early on Thursday because I wanted to walk the course and see some golf, and I wanted to walk out to 16 and experience 16. And as soon as I left hole 18 green and I'm walking towards 18 tee, I almost get hit by a golf ball. Okay. So that's like the best thing that happened to you as a fan is you almost get hit by a golf ball. Golf ball sitting there in the rough on the opposite side of the cart path on 18. So I'm waiting for, I don't know who hit the ball. Here comes Michael Kim, somebody that I really enjoy following on Twitter. I mean, he's got a great social media follow, very interactive with the fans. And I'm literally 3 feet away from him as he's talking to his caddy on what to do and whether or not he was going to take a drop from the cart path or just keep the lie that he had, and proceeded to hit a shot to 6 feet and make the putt for birdie. You know, so like you got a firsthand view of that you're not going to get in other professional sporting events unless you have millions of dollars and can afford those tickets.
What I want to see in pro golf, and frankly, I've been to the national championship, NBA finals, Super Bowls, World Series. You know, take the Super Bowl, for example. It is the marquee NFL event. They should go study what Augusta National does, because if I'm paying $5, $10, $15,000 to go watch the Super Bowl, when I go to the bathroom, I don't want to wait for 20 minutes and then stand in a collection of 100 other fans piss on the floor. Like when you go to the Masters, they've got volunteers in the bathrooms that point out the open urinal or the open stall, wipe it down, and they move thousands of people through the bathrooms, like not to sound like Trump. Bing, bang, boom, bing, bang, boom. You know, you go to get your food or your sandwich, bing, bang, boom, bing, bang, boom. You know, easy peasy. And you look at the problem they're having in the NFL, the Steelers need to copy what the Atlanta Falcons are doing. So the Steelers have sold out every game since 1969. Season tickets are a wait list. The stadium seats roughly 65,000, but average attendance is 61,000. So 4,000 people have paid for a ticket and aren't even going, right? So why aren't they going? It's because parking costs $60 to $80. Hot dogs cost $15. Beer costs $15. Seats cost, hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So to take 3 kids or 3 buddies to a game, you're spending thousands of dollars. So they're taking the sunk cost and just staying home. Now, what are the Atlanta Falcons doing? They did a unique push to lower the cost of food, to lower the cost of parking, to lower the cost of everything else, because they want those extra 4,000 fans who are sitting home to show up. That's where you're making your money. And the fan experience is what they have to do. Nobody likes waiting in line to piss in a trough and stand in urine.
Yeah.
Nobody likes, holding it at their seat because they don't want to miss the action. The other best example is the new Intuit Dome in LA for the Clippers. They're putting incentives to keep people in their seats and be loud. They put in way more bathrooms than they needed, way more concessions than they needed. They're doing deliveries. They're doing everything they can to get people to actually use their tickets and stay in their seats and be loud. And everyone needs to copy that. A mixture of what the Clippers are doing, I know they suck, but a mixture of what the Clippers are doing and what the Masters do, at least for marquee events. You're going to spend that much to go to a Super Bowl or go to the US Open, and that's your marquee event. Make it feel elite.
Right.
Make it feel special for what you're paying. God, for goodness, I mean, it's a joke.
Well, it's a good episode. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe wherever you get your content, whether it's on YouTube or Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We're available anywhere that you get podcast content. Also, please follow us on social media. All our handles are listed here, and it really helps us to grow this program and continue to bring you great content. Have a great day.